Steven Spielberg has just officially announced that his next film will be a Western. So let's take a look at what little we know so far about what will be his 35th feature film. Now, when you consider just how many films Spielberg has directed, you might wonder why he's never gotten round to making a Western, especially considering how much he's contributed to other genres like science fiction and historical drama. But his aversion to working in the genre certainly isn't because he's uninterested in doing so, as Spielberg is known to be a huge fan of Westerns. And because of this reverence he has for the genre, he's been reluctant to tackle it as a director, admitting in an interview that the genre has eluded him for decades, despite his love for it, and that he feels it requires a unique operatic flair that he isn't quite sure how to tackle. But with that being said, it's always felt like just a matter of time before Spielberg directed a Western, given how influential they've been for him as a filmmaker, even from a young age. For example, in his semi-autobiographical movie The Fabelmans, one of the very first things you see the character of Sammy directing is a homemade Western with his friends. And the reason for this is because as a child, Spielberg was deeply influenced by the work of John Ford, calling Stagecoach and The Searchers formative viewing experiences. And reportedly, Spielberg even has a habit of watching Westerns for inspiration before starting new projects, regardless of what genre he happens to be working in. Now, it is true that Spielberg has dabbled in the Western genre as a producer with the 2005 miniseries Into the West, but he's yet to actually direct a Western feature film, with the now 79-year-old director apparently viewing it as a big creative gap in his filmography. So it would seem that Steven Spielberg is finally ready to right that wrong, because while promoting his latest film Disclosure Day, the director officially announced that he's working on a Western next, but insisted that it's too soon to share any details about it. However, he did reveal some telling hints of what we can expect. For starters, he interestingly described the film as kick-ass, which most likely implies that it will be action-packed and large in scale. He also promised it will include all the obvious things like horses and guns, but clarified that there will be no tropes and no stereotypes. So although it's safe to say that this movie will be Spielberg's love letter to the classic Western genre, it seems it will also be a reinvention and subversion of it as well. Now, what that might look like is yet to be seen, but it could be argued that Clint Eastwood took this same approach when directing Unforgiven, and that ended up being one of the most successful films of his career, and resulted in one of the most beloved Westerns of all time. So the template is there for how Spielberg could make this movie a success, and possibly even a big awards contender. And considering that Spielberg has already made clear that he wants whatever Western he makes to have suitable operatic flair, this could end up being one of the most ambitious movies of his career to date. On top of this, he also let slip that he hopes to shoot the film in Texas, which does narrow down the setting, and suggests Spielberg wants to film it authentically, much like his childhood hero John Ford. Now, as for when we can expect to see the movie, my guess would be that we won't have too long to wait, as Spielberg described the film as being in active development, and seemed confident that it will be his next film. And given that Spielberg has been releasing a movie almost every year since 2015, my bet would be a 2027 or 28 release, depending on the scale of the project. But I'll be sure to keep you posted of any updates in the meantime, and let me know below what would you like to see from a Spielberg Western. And while you're here, you might want to check out this video covering all the other new Westerns coming our way soon.